My name is Eleanor Yovitz, and I never imagined the night that was supposed to celebrate my husband's success would be the night I discovered the truth. At his work party, in front of everyone, I saw proof of his affair with the woman he always called his boss. What you're about to hear is how betrayal turned into a plan for revenge that neither of them saw coming. Stay with me until the end, and tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Don't forget to hit subscribe and like, so you never miss these stories. The ballroom shimmered under golden light. My husband, Daniel, stood at the center of it all, perfectly tailored suit hugging his frame, the rising star of the firm. Everyone's eyes followed him, but mine were glued to the woman at his side. Her. The one everyone whispered about. The one he swore was only his boss. I told myself I was overthinking, that the wine was too strong, that I was letting insecurities gnaw at me, but then I saw it. The way she leaned into him, the way her lips brushed his ear as if no one else existed. He smiled in a way I hadn't seen in years, not at me, not in our home, not when I begged him to notice I was still alive. That smile belonged to her. The air thickened. My heart pounded so loud I swore people could hear it over the jazz band. Every detail burned itself into me. Her hand resting too long on his arm, the way his wedding ring gleamed under the chandeliers while he touched her lower back. My throat tightened. I wanted to move, to breathe, but I was locked in place, a guest at my own humiliation. Then, as if fate decided I needed certainty, she slipped something small into his pocket. A hotel key card. Quick, discreet, practiced. He didn't flinch. He just tapped her hand in agreement, as natural as if they'd done it 1,000 times before. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. The laughter, the music, the polite chatter of executives. It all blurred. My entire world had narrowed to that pocket, to the weight of a truth I could no longer deny. My stomach churned, rage mixing with grief, but I didn't look away. I couldn't. Daniel glanced around, as if to make sure no one else had noticed. His eyes never landed on me. I might as well have been invisible. My chest hollowed out, the heat in my body rising until my palms slicked with sweat. And then came the whisper. Her whisper. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the way he nodded, the way her smirk curved as though she had already won. Something inside me cracked. It wasn't the shattering kind, not yet. It was the cold, slow snap of a rope fraying strand by strand. And in that moment, standing among crystal glasses and hollow congratulations, I realized two things. My husband wasn't mine anymore, and whatever mask they thought they could wear, I had just torn it away in my mind. But I didn't confront them. Not there, not yet. I forced a smile to anyone who passed by, nodding as if I were one of them. Just another polished spouse basking in borrowed success. Inside, though, I was fire. I studied every move, every glance, every accidental touch between them. This wasn't new. This wasn't a drunken mistake. This was rehearsed. It was theirs. I felt a hand brush my shoulder and nearly jumped. It was one of his colleagues, smiling warmly, asking me how proud I must be of Daniel's promotion. I mumbled something polite, my lips moving automatically. But my eyes flicked past him, straight back to the two of them, caught in their own orbit. The room felt like it was closing in. I wanted to scream, to drag the tablecloths down and expose them then and there. But instead, I waited. I lingered. Because if I had proof tonight, if I could see it and know it, then I wouldn't be the paranoid wife he mocked. I would be the woman who finally saw her enemy's face. So I followed. Not openly, not foolishly. Just close enough to catch the hushed laughter when they thought the music would cover it. Close enough to see his hand graze her back when no one else was watching. And then, the moment that stole the air from my lungs. The kiss. It wasn't clumsy. It wasn't an accident. It was deep, sure, practiced. His hand cupped her cheek like it belonged there. My legs locked, but my heart raced so violently I thought I'd collapse. Time slowed. yet every detail etched itself into my mind. The boss, the mentor, the woman he swore was only business, her lipstick smeared against his mouth. I staggered back, clutching the edge of a table as the world tilted. I prayed no one saw me, that no one noticed the tears threatening to rise. The humiliation burned hotter than the betrayal, because this wasn't hidden in shadows. It was happening in plain sight. If I had seen it, who else had? But just when I thought I couldn't take more, just when I considered storming out into the night, I caught something else. Something worse. Her voice, low and sharp, cutting through the music. "She'll never matter here." His laugh in response, quiet, complicit. My blood froze. My vision blurred at the edges. And right then, at that party filled with power and polish, the seed of something darker than pain took root inside me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. But one thought pulsed in my skull, steady as a drum. This will not end here. I turned toward them one last time, watching as they slipped away through the crowd, headed for the balcony. My nails dug into my palm until I nearly bled. Whatever waited beyond those glass doors, I knew it would destroy me. And still, I followed. The week before the party, I was pressing Daniel's suit when something slipped from the inside pocket. A folded slip of paper, the kind he usually tossed without thinking. I picked it up, expecting a receipt from lunch, maybe dry cleaning. But it wasn't. My stomach dropped when I read the words, "Deluxe room, 2 guests. 2 glasses of wine. Dinner for 2. The date was 3 nights ago. I walked into the kitchen, receipt pinched between my fingers like evidence in a trial. "What's this?" My voice trembled despite me trying to keep it calm. Daniel looked up from his coffee, smirked and chuckled. "You're not serious, Eleanor. That was a client dinner. The company covered it." I didn't smile. "A hotel room?" He set the mug down, leaned back in his chair as if bored already. "Do you really think I have time to mess around in hotels? Jesus, you need to stop being paranoid. It's exhausting." The gaslighting landed like a slap. He didn't sound nervous, didn't stumble. He had rehearsed this. I wanted to scream, to wave the slip in his face, but instead I shoved it back into his pocket, swallowing the bile in my throat. For the rest of the day, I pretended to believe him. But the image of 2 glasses of wine kept circling in my mind, taunting me. A few nights later, I insisted on coming with him to a small company dinner. He tried to dissuade me, said it was just executives, but I smiled and said, "I'd like to celebrate your promotion too." The restaurant was dimly lit, expensive, full of laughter. And then she walked in. Her. The boss. She didn't just command the room, she devoured it. The way Daniel's face lit up when he saw her nearly split me open. She glided to our table, kissed him lightly on the cheek, just professional enough to pass, and then turned her eyes on me. They lingered for a second too long, assessing, dismissing, filing me under irrelevant. Through the meal, she dominated every conversation. She bragged about closing deals, about mentoring Daniel, about the long nights they had spent working together. And when she finally acknowledged me, it was with a saccharine smile and a line that made my blood run cold. "It must be nice, Eleanor, living a simple little life while Daniel handles all the heavy lifting. Keeps you stress-free, right?" The table laughed politely. I forced a smile so tight my jaw ached. Daniel didn't defend me. He didn't even notice the sting. He was too busy basking in her approval, eyes glowing like he was 15 again, desperate to impress. I sipped my wine, tasted iron. When the dinner ended, I excused myself to the restroom. I needed air, space, anything to calm the boiling rage clawing its way up my throat. By the time I returned, they were standing too close, whispering, her hand brushing his sleeve like it was hers to claim. No one else batted an eye. To them, this was normal. To me, it was confirmation. That night at home, I tried to let it go. I really did. But as he sat on the couch scrolling through his phone, the screen lit up with a message before he could flip it over. I caught it in one heartbeat. Can't wait to see you tonight. My blood turned to ice. Who's that? My voice cracked, betraying the tremor in my chest. He didn't look at me. He just locked the phone, tossed it on the table, and said, flat and cold, "Work. You wouldn't understand. Work. Always work." The word had become his shield, his alibi, his weapon against me. I wanted to snatch the phone, to scream, to tear the truth out of him, but something in his expression stopped me. He wasn't guilty. He was annoyed. Annoyed that I'd dared to question him again. So I said nothing. I turned away, climbed into bed, and stared at the ceiling while he whistled softly in the shower. My heart pounded against my ribs, every nerve ending screaming the truth I had been too afraid to say out loud. I was losing him. Maybe I had already lost him. I lay awake until dawn, replaying every moment. The receipt, the dinner, the message, each one another thread unraveling. And still, I couldn't picture the full tapestry. Not yet. I knew something was rotten in our marriage, but I hadn't seen the depth of it. Not with my own eyes. That proof was coming. And when it did, nothing would ever be the same. The ballroom was a theater that night, and I was the unwilling spectator of a play I hadn't auditioned for. Music swelled, crystal glasses clinked, executives toasted to profits, and in the middle of it all, my husband glowed under the spotlight, the golden boy of the firm. But my eyes weren't on him. They were on her. I told myself again to stop looking, to stop imagining, but it wasn't imagination anymore. Every touch between them was choreographed, practiced. The way her hand lingered on his sleeve, the way he leaned close as she whispered, they weren't hiding. They were daring the world to notice. I moved through the crowd, my heels clicking against marble, a smile plastered on my face for anyone who turned my way. Inside, my chest was a furnace. I caught glimpses between champagne glasses, her hand brushing his ringed finger, his laugh pitched lower when she leaned in. No one else seemed to care. Maybe they already knew. Maybe I was the last to realize my marriage had become a punchline. Then it happened. I saw her slip something small and white into his pocket. I froze. My eyes narrowed, breath shallow. A key card. I knew the shape, the gesture, the ease of it. This wasn't spur-of-the-moment lust. This was routine. This was planned. I felt dizzy. The chandeliers above blurred into halos, my vision tunneling until all I saw was the pocket of his suit where betrayal lived, glowing like a brand. My fingers twitched, desperate to rip it out, to wave it in his smug face. But I didn't move. I watched. They drifted toward the balcony. My legs carried me forward, each step heavier than the last, until I slipped through the glass doors just far enough to hear. The night air was cold against my burning skin. I hid in the shadows, my heart hammering in my ears. Their voices floated back to me, low, intimate. "You handled that presentation perfectly," she murmured, her voice dripping with pride. "I knew you'd be worth investing in." He chuckled, softer, almost boyish. "I couldn't have done it without you." Her laugh followed, sharp and knowing. "You've done plenty with me." My stomach twisted. The words sliced deeper than the kiss I knew was coming. And then it did, slow, deliberate, her hand cupping his face as his lips claimed hers. Not a mistake, not a slip. This was theirs. A ritual, rehearsed and repeated. I bit my tongue until I tasted blood, gripping the balcony's stone edge so hard my knuckles whitened. Tears blurred my vision, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not where they could win twice. As if that weren't enough, her voice dropped, dripping with cruelty. "She'll never matter here, Daniel. Not in this world. She's just background." And he laughed, not nervously, not in protest. He laughed in agreement. The sound hollowed me out. Every lie he'd told, the late nights, the client dinners, the hotel slip. It all lined up like a cruel equation. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't weakness. It was calculation. A partnership built on secrecy and mockery. I wasn't just cheated on. I was erased, I staggered back into the ballroom before I collapsed, my pulse wild, vision swimming. Faces blurred together, champagne bubbles fizzed in my ears. But I kept moving. My smile returned automatically when someone greeted me, though my chest felt split open. Inside, rage coursed through me hotter than grief, louder than humiliation. I found a mirror near the restroom and caught my own reflection. Pale skin, hollow eyes, lips trembling. I barely recognized myself. I pressed my palms to the sink, water running cold over my hands, but nothing washed away the filth of what I'd heard, what I'd seen. The grief came in waves, memories of our wedding vows, our quiet mornings, the years I had poured into his success. I had been the one steady hand while he climbed, and this was the thanks I got, a public betrayal dressed up in champagne and silk. But beneath the grief, something else stirred, something darker. My tears dried before they even fell. My chest hardened, my jaw tightened. For the first time all night I could breathe, because suddenly I saw it clearly. This wasn't just about love. This was about power. She wanted him as her pawn, her prize, her replacement. And he wanted her world more than he ever wanted me. Together they weren't just betraying me. They were trying to erase me. And I don't get erased. I walked back into that ballroom with steady steps, my mask polished, my lips curved just enough to fool them. No one saw the storm inside me. Not yet. But one day soon, they would. I caught sight of Daniel across the room, his arm brushing against hers, both of them laughing as though they owned the night. My nails dug crescent moons into my palm. The humiliation seared deep, but with it came clarity. The thought struck hard, cutting through the haze. They think I'm powerless. They think I'll stay silent. They have no idea who I am. That was the moment it shifted. Grief gave way to steel. Rage sharpened into precision. The betrayal wasn't just a wound anymore. It was fuel. And as I stood there, surrounded by the people who had already written me off, one promise etched itself into my bones. I will not cry about this. I will not walk away. I will make them pay. The party roared around me, but I didn't hear the music, the laughter, or the clinking glasses anymore. I only heard my own voice, steady and sure, whispering inside my head. Revenge. The morning after the party, the world outside looked the same. Philadelphia traffic roaring, the neighbor's dog barking, the smell of coffee filling the kitchen. But inside me, something had changed so completely, it was as if the woman who stood there wasn't me anymore. Daniel breezed in from the shower, humming, adjusting his tie as if nothing had happened. His eyes skimmed over me once, dismissive, as though I were just another piece of furniture he no longer noticed. That small gesture stung worse than the kiss I'd seen on the balcony. He wasn't even trying to hide anymore, because in his mind, I wasn't a threat. "Big day today," he said, buttoning his cufflinks. "The firm's board is watching every move. Don't wait up." I nodded, lips tight around the mug in my hands, pretending to sip. My silence must have looked like compliance, because he smirked before leaning down to brush a cold kiss against my cheek. A performance. Nothing more. The door shut behind him, and that was the moment I made my choice. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to leave quietly while they wrote the narrative of my life for me. No. I was going to burn their story down and write my own ending. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, staring at the receipt I had hidden from the hotel, the one he thought I had thrown away. My fingers traced the ink, the date, the proof. It wasn't just a slip of paper. It was a weapon. The decision didn't come in a burst of rage. It came like ice spreading through my veins. Slow, controlled, irreversible. I thought about how they laughed at me, how she had called me background, how he had stood there, smirking, as though my world could collapse and he wouldn't even notice. They thought I was harmless. They thought I was erased. That was their mistake. For the next few days, I played the role they expected of me. I smiled when Daniel came home, asked about his meetings, cooked his favorite meals, I nodded when he lied about working late, even kissed him goodnight when his phone lit up with her messages. He thought he had me contained, boxed in by my own silence. He had no idea I was watching, cataloging, remembering. At dinner one night, he looked at me across the table with a smug little grin. "You're quiet lately. I like this version of you. Less dramatic." I smiled back, lowering my eyes like a dutiful wife. "Maybe I'm learning," I whispered. He chuckled, pleased, and went back to his steak. That was when I knew I had him exactly where I wanted him. Arrogant, blind, certain of his control. The truth was, every moment of silence was fuel. Every humiliation sharpened me. And every scrap of evidence I tucked away was another match waiting to strike. The turning point wasn't dramatic. Not outwardly. No slammed doors, no screaming confrontations. The turning point was invisible to him, but monumental to me. I decided that his betrayal wouldn't just end in heartbreak. It would end in ruin. When I looked at him now, I didn't see a husband. I saw a mark. And when I thought of her, the boss who believed she had won, I didn't feel envy anymore. I felt calculation. Late that night, when Daniel finally fell asleep, I slipped from the bed and opened the drawer where I had hidden the hotel receipt. I smoothed it flat, my hands steady. My reflection in the window looked back at me, not broken, not defeated, focused, cold. The thought whispered in my mind, steady and certain. They will never see me coming. And as I slid the receipt into a folder I had already started, my lips curved into the faintest smile. Because my plan had already begun. The decision was already carved into me. But a decision without a plan was nothing. If I wanted revenge to cut as deep as their betrayal, I needed precision. No screaming, no dramatic scenes they could dismiss as hysteria. I wanted facts, proof, ammunition. I started small. His suits, his briefcase, the jacket he tossed carelessly on the chair each night. I searched everything. Most days, I found nothing. But one night, buried in the pocket of his laptop bag, I discovered a hotel rewards card, already stamped with multiple stays. He hadn't just slipped once. He had a pattern. My stomach turned, but I tucked the card into the folder I'd begun in secret. Every piece of paper was a nail for his coffin. The risk of discovery made my pulse race. Once, as I was rifling through his desk drawer, the front door clicked open earlier than usual. I had seconds to slide the drawer shut and retreat to the kitchen, splashing water into a glass as he stepped in. He didn't notice my shaking hands, too busy scrolling through his phone, probably texting her. I swallowed down the panic. Close calls were part of the game. But I knew paper alone wouldn't be enough. I needed eyes. So I followed. At first, I felt foolish trailing my own husband through the city streets. But he made it easy. His patterns were predictable. Late-night work dinners that always ended at the same high-rise hotel near Market Street. From my car across the street, I watched him disappear through those revolving doors more times than I could count. Every sighting was logged, dated, timed. I didn't need to imagine anymore. I had proof. The hardest part was keeping up the mask at home. Daniel grew bolder, smugger. "You're really quiet these days," he said one evening, swirling his whiskey. "I think it suits you." I forced a smile, biting my tongue until I nearly bled. He thought I was tamed, broken down into submission, but every condescending word only sharpened my resolve. I expanded my search. His emails, his calendar invites, all conveniently synced to our shared computer. He must have thought I was too simple to know how to check, or maybe he was too arrogant to care. I found threads of messages cloaked in corporate language but laced with intimacy. "Great job tonight. Couldn't have done it without you." I screenshotted everything, transferring it all to a USB drive I hid behind the lining of my handbag. One night, while Daniel showered, I slipped his phone from the nightstand. My hands shook as I scrolled through the locked messages he thought I couldn't access. But he wasn't clever. His passcode was our anniversary. Inside, the proof screamed at me. Dozens of texts from her, littered with hearts and late-night confessions. Miss you already. Same room tomorrow? She'll never know. I nearly dropped the phone when the water shut off. My chest constricted as his footsteps neared the door. With seconds to spare, I slid it back into place, diving under the covers as if I'd been asleep. He climbed into bed, oblivious, and within minutes was snoring softly beside me. My heart only slowed hours later, but by then I had memorized enough of those words to etch them into stone. The deeper I dug, the clearer it became. They weren't just having an affair. They were using each other, building an empire of deceit. She boosted his career, he fed her ego, and together they mocked me as the collateral damage. It wasn't just adultery. It was conspiracy, and conspiracy leaves trails. I befriended one of his co-workers at a casual lunch, feigning naivety. A few glasses of wine later, she leaned closer, lowering her voice. Everyone knows Eleanor. I mean, it's obvious. He gets all the best accounts because of her. You think it's his hard work? Please. She giggled, unaware that every word was another brick in the foundation I was building. That night, I sat at the kitchen table long after Daniel had gone to bed, the folder spread open before me. Receipts, screenshots, hotel logs, whispered confessions. I ran my fingers over the stack, neat and heavy, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to calm, but calm wasn't enough. Proof could expose them, but I wanted more. I wanted spectacle. Public humiliation to mirror the public betrayal. If they had flaunted their affair in glittering rooms full of colleagues and champagne, then I would use those same rooms to destroy them. I began mapping it out. The next corporate gala, the one where Daniel was set to receive recognition from the board, the perfect stage, the perfect audience. I would time it precisely, a revelation so undeniable that neither of them could spin or silence it. For days, I refined the plan in my head. I practiced my expression in the mirror. Neutral, unshaken, impossible to read. I rehearsed my lines, short and cutting. I tested the folder's weight in my handbag until it felt natural. Each step brought me closer to the moment I knew would change everything. And then, one night, while Daniel slept soundly beside me, I sat in the dark and whispered to myself, "It's ready." The plan wasn't scribbles anymore. It wasn't hope or fantasy. It was real, sharpened, waiting. All that was left was execution. The night of the gala arrived draped in velvet and crystal, the kind of night Daniel had always worshipped. To him, it was the pinnacle of success, the stage where his name would be cemented among Philadelphia's corporate elite. To me, it was the stage for his downfall. I dressed deliberately, every choice calculated. A sleek black gown, understated pearls, hair pulled back. I didn't want to shine. I wanted to be invisible until the exact moment I chose otherwise. My handbag, elegant and small, carried more than lipstick and keys. Inside was the folder I had assembled piece by piece, receipts, screenshots, hotel records, and whispers turned into proof. It was heavier than gold, heavier than betrayal. It was justice. The ballroom glittered as we entered. Chandeliers bathed the room in golden light, champagne glasses sparkled, laughter echoed like the chorus of a hollow church. Daniel walked beside me, radiating pride, his hand brushing mine only when someone was watching. He didn't see the steel in my eyes. He didn't notice how calm I was. She was already there, of course, his boss, dressed in silver that caught every reflection of the chandeliers. People flocked to her like moths, her confidence commanding, her smile polished. When Daniel caught sight of her, his eyes lit up in a way I hadn't seen in years. He left my side without hesitation, beelining toward her. I drifted behind, unnoticed, the ghost wife among glittering strangers. Their laughter carried. Their whispers hovered just beyond polite distance. The way she leaned into him, the way he touched her elbow, all of it disguised as corporate camaraderie, but clear to anyone who truly looked. The arrogance of it sickened me. They didn't even care anymore. The speeches began. Executives took the stage, one after another, droning on about growth, innovation, Legacy. My heart pounded steadily, each beat a countdown. Daniel sat at the front table beside her, his posture relaxed, his smile dazzling. Every time the spotlight shifted his way, he played the role of the dutiful protégé, the rising star. Finally, his name was called. The applause was thunderous, the room erupting as he strode to the stage. My husband, the golden boy, standing tall under the chandeliers as if the world belonged to him. He thanked the board, shook hands, waved to the crowd, and then, as he adjusted the microphone, I rose from my chair. The room quieted as my heels clicked against the marble. Each step was deliberate, echoing louder than the applause. Faces turned, curious, then puzzled. Daniel froze, his smile faltering. "Eleanor?" he said into the microphone, his voice tight. I didn't answer him. I climbed the steps and stood at the podium, directly beside him. For the first time in months, I felt taller than him. My fingers unclasped the handbag, and I drew out the folder. "I won't take much of your time," I said, my voice steady, ringing through the speakers. "But before you celebrate Daniel tonight, there are things you should know." Daniel's hand shot out to grab my arm, but I stepped away, opening the folder. The first document projected on the massive screen behind us. A hotel receipt. The date, the room number, the charge for 2 guests. Gasps swept through the crowd. Daniel laughed too loudly, shaking his head. "This is absurd," he said, his smile cracking. "A business expense, nothing more." Click. The next slide. A series of texts. "Miss you already? Same room tomorrow?" "She'll never know." Each signed with her name. The murmurs grew louder. Executives shifted uncomfortably. The boss's face tightened, her hands gripping the edge of the table. "Stop this," Daniel hissed under his breath, his eyes flashing. "You'll embarrass yourself." I turned, letting the microphone catch my words. "Embarrass myself? No, Daniel. Tonight isn't about me." Click. Screenshots of emails, intimate in tone, laced with innuendo but written from company accounts. Expense reports filed for client dinners that matched the dates of hotel stays. Photos I had taken from across the street. Him and her slipping into the Market Street Hotel, his hand at her waist. The audience erupted into whispers and gasps. A board member rose, his face stern. "Is this true?" he demanded, his voice carrying across the ballroom. Daniel stammered. "No, it's taken out of context. She's twisting." But the evidence was undeniable. One by one, the pieces stacked into a mountain too high to climb over. The room no longer looked at him with admiration. They looked at him with disgust. The boss rose, her silver dress catching the light, her voice sharp. "This is a personal matter, not professional. It has nothing to do with the company." I smiled, cold and sharp. Fraudulent expense reports, favoritism, policy violations. "You think the board will agree?" The board members were already whispering furiously, their eyes narrowing on her. She paled, her composure cracking. Daniel reached for the microphone, his voice breaking. "This is my wife. She's hysterical. She doesn't understand." But his words drowned beneath the projected evidence. Each slide cut deeper. Each whisper in the crowd turned sharper. His career, his reputation, his carefully crafted mask. All of it was collapsing in real time. And then, the final blow. I pulled out a flash drive and handed it to the chairman of the board, his expression grim. "On this drive," I said, "are weeks of correspondence between Daniel and her. Not just their affair, but evidence of financial misconduct, using company funds to cover their trysts. Every file, every timestamp is there. It's irrefutable." The chairman's jaw tightened. "We'll review this immediately. Daniel, we'll need to speak with you and your superior in private." The room buzzed. Some guests looked away in pity. Others leaned forward, eager for blood. Daniel's face had drained of color. The boss sat rigid, her hands shaking. But I wasn't finished. I leaned toward the microphone, my voice low but clear. "For months you told me I was paranoid, that I didn't matter. Tonight, Daniel, you're exposed. To her, to them, to everyone. You built your career on deceit, and now it crumbles in front of the only people whose approval you ever wanted. Gasps. Silence. Then, the sound of glass shattering. The boss's champagne flute hitting the floor. The board members stood, moving toward the stage. Security flanked the room. The gala, once a temple of success, had turned into a courtroom, and the verdict was already written. Daniel reached for me, his voice hoarse. "Eleanor, please, don't do this." I looked him dead in the eye. I already did. I turned and walked off the stage, my heels striking like a gavel. Behind me, voices erupted. Executives shouting, board members demanding explanations. Daniel and his boss snapping at each other like cornered animals. The empire they built together had cracked wide open, and there was no going back. By the time I reached the exit, the night air was cool against my skin. I paused on the steps, hearing the chaos echo from inside. His name, once spoken with pride, now hissed with scorn. Her voice, once commanding, now brittle and desperate. I inhaled deeply, the air crisp, clean, free. And for the first time in months, I smiled. Not the practiced mask, but something real, sharp, victorious. Because the execution was complete. They weren't untouchable anymore. They weren't gods in glass towers. They were ruined, and I had done it. The morning after the gala, Philadelphia hummed as if nothing had changed. Cars honked down Broad Street. Coffee shops buzzed with chatter. The world spinning on as usual. But inside Daniel's life, nothing would ever be the same. By noon, the scandal had broken. Articles splashed his name across headlines. Promising executive exposed in gala scandal. The board had moved swiftly, suspending both Daniel and his boss pending a formal investigation. Their faces were everywhere, not with praise, but with ridicule. I watched from my kitchen, coffee in hand, as the news anchor replayed footage from the night before. There I was, stepping to the podium, evidence flashing across the screen. My voice, calm and steady, played for all of Philadelphia. The anchor's words cut deeper than I could have written myself. Career suicide. Broadcast live. Daniel called me half a dozen times that day. I didn't answer. His voicemails were frantic, pleading, then angry. "Eleanor, you've ruined me. Do you understand what you've done? I have nothing now. Nothing." Exactly. His boss tried to outmaneuver the scandal, releasing a statement about malicious rumors. But the board wasn't fooled. Within 48 hours, she was stripped of her authority, her office locked, her name tarnished beyond repair. The company needed a scapegoat, and she became the perfect one. Neighbors whispered when they saw Daniel's car still in the driveway midweek. His colleagues stopped calling. Friends vanished. Even family kept their distance. He was toxic now, his fall too public, too humiliating to ignore. At home, he finally broke. One night, he stood in the living room, his tie loose, his face drawn. "Why, Eleanor?" His voice cracked. "Why couldn't you just let it go? We could have worked through it." I laughed. A sound so cold it silenced him. "You erased me, Daniel. You thought I was nothing. Now you get to feel it." He looked at me then with hollow eyes, the arrogance gone, replaced by something pitiful. It didn't matter. I was already gone, even while standing under the same roof. The weeks that followed cemented his ruin. He lost his job officially, blacklisted from the industry. The boss filed a lawsuit against him, desperate to claw back her own reputation, accusing him of manipulation. He tried to fight back, but with no allies, no money, and every eye against him, he sank fast. I moved quietly, selling the house, transferring accounts. By the time he realized what was happening, my name was no longer tied to his. Divorce papers slid across the table, crisp and final. He didn't argue. He only stared at the pen like it weighed more than he could lift. When I walked away from that table, I felt lighter than I had in years. But the story didn't end there. One evening, weeks later, as I unpacked boxes in my new apartment overlooking Rittenhouse Square, I received a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something compelled me to answer. Mrs. Jovitz? The voice was clipped, professional. This is regarding the files you provided to the board. My stomach tightened. Yes? A pause. Then, the investigation uncovered more than just infidelity and policy violations. There were financial irregularities, accounts tied to Daniel's name, shell companies, missing funds. It's serious. He could be facing charges. I froze. I hadn't known. I had gone looking for betrayal, for humiliation. I hadn't expected to uncover crimes that could put him behind bars. Thank you for your cooperation, the voice continued. You may be called to testify. When the line went dead, I sat in silence, the city lights flickering outside my window. For the first time, I realized the scope of what I had done. I hadn't just ended his career. I had destroyed his future, possibly his freedom. And then came the twist I never saw coming. 2 days later, a plain envelope arrived at my door. No return address. Inside was a single piece of paper, a bank statement, one of the accounts under investigation. But the deposit listed there wasn't in Daniel's name. It was in mine. My breath caught. My eyes scanned the numbers again and again. Thousands of dollars funneled into an account I had never touched, but tied legally to me. A note was scrawled across the bottom in her handwriting. The boss's, unmistakable. If I go down, I'm taking you with me. The room spun. Suddenly, the revenge that had burned so bright twisted into something darker, more dangerous. This wasn't over. Not yet. I folded the paper slowly, my hands steady despite the storm raging inside. One war had ended, but another was already beginning. And as I stared out at the city, my reflection sharp against the glass, I realized something chilling. Revenge doesn't end with exposure. It evolves. And I was ready for the next move. Thank you for staying with me through this story. Sometimes the deepest betrayals carry the most powerful lessons, and I hope you felt every step of that journey as much as I did telling it. If you've ever faced betrayal, heartbreak, or even taken your own path toward justice, I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.